What is up, y'all? Welcome back to the channel. Today we are hopefully gonna fix an issue that's been plaguing this car for about 5 years now. So you're definitely gonna want to stay tuned for this one. Woohoo! Alrighty, y'all. First thing I'd like to do is I'd like you guys to know that this product that we're going to talk about, I am not sponsored by at all. It's something that I thought was very interesting, and I've been looking at for the last 2 or 3 years now, and we're going to give it a shot. So I'm going to kind of go back in time here and tell you about this car. So we built this car about 5 years ago. Ever since the get-go, it's pretty much gone through 1 or 2 distributors a year, and I based probably a lot of that on the fact that it goes to the track, high RPM, high heat. A lot of its time in the summer is doing that. So that's probably why we've gone through so many distributors. Well, I've been wanting to go coil on plug for quite some time. None of the coil on plug kits have really interested me at all, because they still utilize several of the components from these super shitty distributors that come in these cars, and it's pretty old school. I mean, we have a lot of new school technology on this car, and I just was never really interested in spending $900 on something that is still basically, you know, early 2000s technology at best. So, yeah, this product, I came across it a couple years ago, and I've been kind of following their Facebook, I've been following their YouTube videos, their reels, everything like that. And I had stumbled across this company, and I thought it was really cool, and I've been wanting to try it. And I told myself when the last distributor went out that there was no way in hell I was going to spend another $350 on a stupid distributor again. So, well, I'm pretty sure we have another distributor problem. Getting tack dropout, sputtering, that sort of thing, doing some really weird things typical of a distributor. So I actually ordered this distributor, tried it, it lasted all of 10 minutes, and that one went out. So I was like, okay, had enough, we're gonna get one of these kits, and finally we got one of these kits, and I'm going to show you what that is. So as you guys can see, the product we are putting on the car today is the Digi-Dizzy. This is a all digital distributorless ignition setup for it. Basically, it's rid of the crappy analog system that they've been running since the 80s and updates it with something more 21st century. So pretty cool. I'm going to show you guys kind of a few of the things that it comes with and talk about them, and give you some information on it as well. So first we'll talk about the coils. They are pretty cool. Digi-Dizzy has his name embellished on them. I asked him who they're made by. They're made by AIP. AIP is who makes Dragonfire distributors. So I've ran the Dragonfire distributors. I've had several of them. Some of them have been good, some of them have been bad. So if you're gonna maybe change anything on this system and you were unsure of something, maybe the coils, you could go with like a Denso or an NGK instead. You are gonna pay considerably more money for those, but we're gonna rock these, give them a shot. He says that he has 150 customers making 700 plus horsepower, most of them turbocharged and NA. I mean, kind of all over the spectrum, and he says that these are the hot tickets. So the kit itself, $930 shipped to your door. Not cheap. I mean, if you're you know, at the start of a build or midway through your build, this may not be a product that you would want to throw on initially to at least get your car going, But if you're like me and you want the best and you've been struggling with good ignition systems, this is the way to go, I feel. So I'll show you a couple of other things here. The plate, this is what holds the coils, also embellished with Digi-Dizzy, pretty cool. He does offer the unit itself in a couple different options. He didn't have any of the polished or the raw aluminum. He only had black in stock. But he did have a red cover, so he threw that in for me, which is pretty cool. That'll match our car and our valve cover itself. I threw the black plate in, or the ring, in case I want to change it over. Also gave us a block-off plate, in case we don't want to see any of it, because when it's on the car, all this is lit up and looks pretty cool, but if that's not your thing, you can block it off. Also, the adjuster bolt is pretty fancy that comes with it. It's nice machined billet. That's pretty cool. And then he gives us some extra screws here, I believe, for this plate. As far as the harness goes, this looks like kind of like a mil-spec type harness. Looks really nice. The connectors also seem pretty high quality. He even gives you a bolt for a ground. Pretty cool. I mean, this is as close to plug and play as you can get. The only thing you will need is a timing light if you don't have one. So we're going to go through the install process here in a bit, and I'll show you how we're going to put this awesome system on there. So before we do anything with this install, I just want to show you guys what I also did and I would recommend doing before you do this kit. I would install some new plugs. That way your plugs aren't your limiting factor on your build. So we went with the 2668s, which is a number 8 temperature iridium NGK plug. Being that we are E85 and force inducted, I cut the gap down to 19 thousandths. I think stock is around 40 or 44 thousand, something like that. When you're boosted, definitely want to get it down to about half. Otherwise, you'll have detonation. So I did install some plugs already, and I'm going to show you the next steps. Okay, so the next step you're going to want to do is put your engine at TDC. I'll zoom in here so you can see. I have my mark on the crank pulley here, if I can get that to focus. The single mark there, not the 3 marks, the single mark lines up with the cover. Got that. Also wanted to make sure on the compression stroke as well. So we got everything lined up here. We're good. This does have aftermarket cams that are degreed, also aftermarket cam gear. So the biggest thing that the guy from Digi-Dizzy, I think his name's Chris, told me to do is just make sure that you are dead on that line. The next thing we're going to do, we're going to pull all of our plugs, or spark plug wires off. Get that going here. And I don't need to show you guys how to take the distributor off. Everybody that was worked on a Honda's probably had that off. Just take the 3 bolts off, disconnect your wires in the back side here, and we'll go from there. Okay, so we have our Digi-Dizzy ready to go on. You got your line here. I did index it properly, so it will go, should slide right on. If it's oriented the wrong way, it shouldn't slide on. So just another thing to look at is for that line on it, just like this one here. So pretty simple. It'll slide on and we'll get our bolt in. So we have the Digi-Dizzy on here, slid right on. We're gonna start with it in like fully retarded, so that way we don't have to worry about, you know, anything being weird and wrecking anything. So we'll start with it fully retarded, which is pushed all the way forward. So yeah, we'll work on that, or we worked on that. Now we're gonna run all our wiring, and I'll show you where we end up running this ground to as well. So, and we also have to mount our plate. All right, so before you put this plate on, you do need to pull your the nuts off that hold your valve cover down. So I took those nuts off. They were just a couple of these here. Pulled those off and set that on there, and we'll throw our nuts back on, and then we'll slide our coils down. We got our coils all mounted, got them snugged down. Everything fits super tight, pretty snazzy. And now we're gonna get these all hooked up. This should all pretty much be like simple to hook up, because the shortest one obviously goes to the closest one there. The longest one goes to the furthest one, so that's simple. And then when you order these too, he always wants a photo of your connector to verify that he sends you the right one, just because there's so many different options that people run on their cars. So when you order it via email, he does ask you for a photo. So it's just the 2 wires that you'll plug in. And then after I get them plugged in, I'll probably do a little bit of routing of the wires so it looks real nice and it's nice and tucked in. So we got all of our wires hooked up here. I just threw a couple zip ties on just to tidy it up slightly. And then I ran the ground onto the thermostat housing right there. So I didn't need to use the supplied bolt or anything like that. I was able to run it down under here. And then I just kind of tucked these wires because there isn't a bracket to hold the wire loom like the factory distributor does or has. So I just kind of tucked them down under here and zip tied them. Just make sure you put it in a spot that where the loom isn't at, it doesn't rub through. So just be careful with that when you decide to mount it. So I believe the next step is to program the Digi-Dizzy. So we, like I said before, we got it at TDC right now. So what we need to do is we need to pull this cover off. There's a couple Allens on here. We'll pull that off, and then we will do a key on, engine off, so all the way forward but not cranking. And there's a button on here that we need to push to program it. Okay, scratch what I said about grounding it to the thermostat housing. Chris just sent me a message because I sent him a photo of where I grounded it, and he said don't do that. He said you need to keep the spark energy as close to possible to the Digi-Dizzy and the coils, so I'll show you kind of what we did instead. So we moved it from down there and put it to this lower hole that uses the old distributor hole. Comes with the hardware and everything to do it. So yeah, we just looped the ground around and stuck it there. That way it's on the head. He said that is the best course of action for this. So now I just sent him a message and he explained to me exactly how to program this thing. So I'm going to go through that with you guys so you know the correct way how to do this new version, because there is a lot of other versions of this out there, like the older ones. This is going to be for the newest one. So we got the car set at TDC. We have it fully retarded. And now we are going to turn the key all the way forward, but don't start the car. Here we go. Pulled forward. So we're going to come over here. We're going to have some lights. So what we're going to do, we're going to start advancing this thing very slowly. Green light came on. That's 8 degrees. We're going to keep going till we hit 16, and we know we hit 16 when the light goes off. So right there, we tighten it down, and she should start. All right, let's fire this bad girl up. I did turn the key off, and then I just recycled it. So now we're going to try starting. She fired right up. So I'm gonna let this thing get completely warm. Right now we're cold. Let her get warm, and then we're gonna check the timing with a timing light, and we have to lock it in the ECU on Honda too to verify it, but we should be pretty good, I think. All right, so the green light flickering is every time cylinder number 1 comes around. It's not picking up every single time because the camera won't pick up the LED. The blue indicates that it is a Honda ECU. If it was yellow, it would be an aftermarket. And then the red is a indicator of ignition timing. So like when we blip it, it flickers and whatnot. So that's also normal. Okay, so we got the car all warmed up. She's at operating temp. We have our timing light hooked up to cylinder number 1. We're powering the light off of the alternator since the battery is all the way inside the car. The cord's not long enough. And then we just have it grounded on the shock tower. So we do have voltage there, or at least enough to power the light right now. So we're good. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start the car. I'm going to go into the Honda, the S Manager in here. And I'll show you what you need to do when you're in here. You need to download the tune. And then you start data logging, which is the little lightning bolt there. And then once you're doing that, you'll hit online, and then you'll scroll down and hit set timing. You're gonna lock the timing at, say, 16 degrees. And then you go over, you check with your light that you're also at 16 degrees there. And if you're not, you adjust this until your light says you're at 16 degrees. If you're unsure on how to use the timing light, make sure you watch a YouTube video before doing so. Also, thank you, Steve-O, for letting me borrow your timing light. It's probably hopefully the only time I ever have to use one, so thank you for letting me borrow that. All right, so we did just check the timing. We did have to advance it a little bit. Definitely raised the idle some too. So I think we're probably pretty close to where we need to be. I am gonna contact my tuner though, just to go over everything and make sure everything looks okay, but I think we're gonna be damn close for sure. Okay, so we got everything timed. I got it all buttoned back up. Got the cover back on it. She's all tightened down. You can see that's kind of where I have everything sitting. I moved the ground down there, so we're good there. What I'm gonna do now, fingers crossed it's not raining, I'm gonna go for a quick rip and see if it's still doing it. If it is, I talked to my tuner and he said he's willing to send me an ECU to try, because that's the only other thing that I think could be causing my tack and like power shut off, or just blah, 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 blah. It's annoying as hell. So we're gonna go for a rip, hopefully here, and we'll see if she's fixed. Just checked. Unfortunately, it is downpouring outside, so we're not gonna be able to go for a rip today. I do have a driving school that I'm going to tomorrow. I'm instructing at down at Black Hawk Farm. So if I get back early enough, I'll try and rip the car then. I'm gonna show you one thing I also just had to do. I had to take another notch out of here. There was one of these flaps there, but it was actually hitting on the coil because these sit up higher than the aluminum plate that I had on there. So I did have to take another cut out of that one, but hey, it is what it is. These have already been cut out because they didn't clear. So hell yeah, be able to see the Digi-Dizzy. So it's been a few days or so. We've had just like totally shitty weather here, so I haven't not been able to get out, whatever. So the car, like I said, has been sitting for, God, almost probably about a week now. So came in, cranked right over, boom, fired right up. So it's at least working, even after being, you know, heat cycled or whatever. So that's a good start here. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take her out, drive it for 20 minutes or so, and I'm just really freaking hoping that our issue is solved and I'm not getting the tack and power drop out. Fingers crossed. Let's go for a rip. So as you guys can see, only about half of our problem is fixed. The tack's not dropping out anymore, but we're still getting like a massive like power cut. Just blah, 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 blah. So I don't know. I really don't know. Maybe check, see if we got like a fuel restriction or something going on. Maybe the fuel filter. It doesn't seem to do it if I do like a first, second, third gear. It seems more like the long pulls from like fourth and fifth that really do it. So maybe it is getting some kind of fuel cut. Maybe it's the ECU. We're gonna have to do some investigating, but not today. I got a race tomorrow. Gonna have to run the Type R, which is supposed to rain anyway, so I guess it is what it is. So we'll keep trying to figure this problem out. Alrighty, y'all. We finally diagnose the car. It's been about a week since I talked to you guys last after we drove it. Yeah, it's been a pretty frustrating week, but finally narrowed down the issue. Gonna have to replace the car. That's pretty much what it comes down to. I'm just kidding. The issue, or actually I'll just give you kind of what I did this week. So I pulled the fuel filters apart because I have two inline fuel filters. So we have those two filters. I pulled them apart, spotless. Nothing in them. I thought, hey, maybe, the pump's breaking down, the lines, things are ending up in the filters. We're getting a fuel restriction and we're getting fuel cut. Nope, that wasn't it. So I had King Motorsports. Thank you to the guys at King, especially Tim, for all your help in helping me figure this out. But so King Motorsports sent me an ECU. I swapped my Honda over onto the ECU they sent me. Still same problems. So I sent a number of data logs to Tim, and he checked them over, and he goes, why don't you try, reflashing the tune that we originally put on the car when it was here, because I've messed with it since then, and blah, blah, blah. So I tried it, but I didn't turn off launch control. I had that still on. And he goes, I'm seeing launch control kicking on while you're driving. Shows up as a 1 or a 0, and it was showing up that it was turning on. He goes, make sure you have that turned off. So I turned it off, and he goes, yeah, looking at the vehicle speed, it's seeing like 0 miles an hour when you're in 4th or 5th gear, which not right. So I turned it off. I went for a drive. No issues. Wasn't cutting out, anything like that. So the car was thinking that I was not moving at all, and it was engaging launch control. So what we've narrowed it down to is the gauge cluster. So these older Integras have a cable that runs from the transmission to the back of the cluster. The mechanical portion of it feeds the speedo, the actual manual needle, but then there's also an electronic portion of that, and that feeds the ECU for the boost by gear, the launch control, all the other things that you can do. So the electronic portion of the gauge cluster has basically failed. And it keeps thinking that I'm not moving, causing none of my fancy ECU controlled things to work. So with that shut off, the car is fine. I won't have launch control, I won't have boost by gear, but at least we have it narrowed down. So for the time being, I'm just going to drive the car. I might look for a cluster here at some point online. I might even do an electronic vehicle speed sensor setup, which I won't be able to use my factory cluster. Then I'd have to figure out something different, whether it's GPS based or some type of other, maybe do an S2000 cluster or something. I don't know, but they're $900 and it's not really worth it. I don't really care about the speed that much. But yeah, it is figured out. It is running and driving great. It's got a 10-pound spring in it now, so we don't have the, the craziness of with the boost by gear where we had it really cranked up on the boost. But 10-pound spring for now is fine, especially for what we're doing, Blackhawk Farms and some autocrosses and stuff like that. So thank you guys. Thank you, Tim. Thank you guys at King Motorsports for all your help. Thanks to all my friends, family that have stuck through me on this. This one was a very frustrating experience. This weekend, we are going to be racing the Type R. I don't know. This thing in a parking lot autocross is not the best. It's got too much power. So we're not going to run that this weekend. We're going to run the Type R over at Ho-Chunk. We won last weekend in the Type R and that autocross, and that was in the rain. So I'm hoping we get some dry weather this weekend, and the Type R is going to throw down again. So, yeah, thank you, everybody. Thanks for sticking around. I know I rambled a lot here, but yeah, if you could, please like, subscribe, hit that bell for notifications. We'll probably see you in about a week at the races. So, we'll catch you later. Thanks, y'all.